Hi everybody, this is Francine Gonzalez with Innovative Transactions. We are a virtual real estate transaction coordinating company here in California. I'm a certified transaction coordinator and also a certified CARS form trainer. So my goal is to be able to bring all of my real estate friends some valuable information and educate them on some forms that we use in our everyday transactions. So today I'm going to bring you some information on the qualified substitute form along with the seller's affidavit of non-foreign status. Now, these two forms are very misunderstood in the transactions. And so it's very, very important that we understand the legalities of these forms and that we are also, advising our clients correctly on how these forms should be used. Now, there's quite a bit of information, so I'm going to look down at my notes here to make sure that I get everything covered today. So what is the FIRPTA form? So the seller's affidavit of non-foreign status is commonly known as the FIRPTA form. So this is the Foreign Investment in Real Estate Property Tax Act. Since January 1st, 1985, the act was required that the buyer withhold 10 to 15% of the gross sales price, and they must get that sent over to the IRS. So if the seller is a foreign seller, it is the buyer's responsibility to make sure that those taxes are withheld, and they need to direct escrow to withhold those taxes and to send them over to the IRS. Now, what must be included on the seller affidavit form? So the seller's required to furnish the buyer with a seller's affidavit, which we know as the CAR Form AS, again, also known as the FIRPTA form. On this form, it must state the seller's tax identification number, also known as your Social Security number. It must also let the buyer know whether if they have a foreign status, and they need to sign this affidavit under penalty of perjury. So they need to make sure that everything on that statement is correct. So one of the big challenges that we face daily in our transactions is having the Social Security number on the form. So a lot of times we will receive these forms with no Social Security number on it, or it'll say on file with escrow. Well, according to the IRS code, the seller has to provide that information to the buyer if you are using this form. So if the seller does not provide the Social Security number, then it is the buyer's responsibility to withhold that 10 to 15% tax until the buyer or the seller supplies the buyer with the full affidavit form with all the required information. Now, how long should the buyer hold the seller's affidavit? Okay, so we, as transaction coordinators and the real estate agent, we're responsible for getting those forms over to the buyer and having the buyer sign acknowledgement. But the buyer has to keep these forms on file in their records for 5 years. The IRS can come back and ask them for this form, and so they have to be able to supply a copy to the IRS should the IRS request that. Now, the alternative to providing the seller affidavit form with the Social Security number on it is the qualified substitute form. Now, what this states is that the seller still has to fill out the affidavit form, but they are giving that form to a qualified substitute other than the buyer, and the qualified substitute is going to sign a form stating that they have that information on file. So this could be your escrow companies, it can be your title company, it can also be the buyer's broker. However, it cannot be the listing agent's broker. It can't be the listing agent. And with that being said, on the CAR website, it also states that an in-house escrow cannot act as a qualified substitute because there is relation with the listing broker. The qualified substitute has to be somebody outside of the listing broker. Now, if the listing broker has an in-house escrow, but they are an independent company and they are not directly associated with that broker, then that escrow can be a qualified substitute. Then again, this is a daily challenge that we face with in-house escrow supplying the qualified substitute form when they cannot be the qualified substitute according to the IRS code. So the potential liability for the buyer is if this information is not given to the buyer, and the buyer does not withhold the 10 to 15% tax if it does apply, then the buyer can be responsible for that tax, and they can also be responsible for any penalties and fees. So we don't want to put our buyers in this situation where they are going to have to be responsible for this. So we need to make sure as real estate professionals that we are doing this correctly, and that if the seller does not supply the proper information, providing that they are not a foreign seller, then we need to make sure that the buyer is directing escrow to withhold those taxes. Let's see here. And so I think I covered everything on my forms here. Just if you have any questions on what is a foreign seller, if you pull up the CAR Form AS, you can look on the second page, and it gives you all of the guidelines of what is qualified as a seller, a foreign seller. Your qualified substitute forms, it even says right on the form on item number 1 that the qualified substitute cannot be the transfers broker. So if you have any questions on the legal aspects of this, I would recommend that you call CAR Legal. They're really great over there. They will help answer any of your questions. If you have any questions in regards to transactions, please feel free to reach out to me. You could reach me at 951-833-7223. Then again, 951-833-7223. Thank you guys, and have a great day.